Off the Grid is the new extraction battle royale third-person shooter that's gained massive amounts of popularity recently on the gaming side of social media. But why? What is it, and should you care? These are the questions I'll try to answer in this video, as well as to talk about the elephant in the room. Spoiler, that elephant is cryptocurrency, blockchain, and NFTs, because that's exactly what this game has in it, which is a huge topic to discuss in the first place. And usually this video would focus almost exclusively on that aspect because the game would be totally secondary. Historically, that's been the case. These things have been disqualifying, including in a video game, for anyone who's looking to have fun and not speculate on, things that nobody cares about. But unlike all of those, this is an actual game, built for gamers, one that you wouldn't even know had this stuff in it unless somebody told you. So with that being the case, it's only fair that I treat the first part of this video as I would any other gaming review, and that is to talk about the game, judge it based on its own merit of being a game, as a gamer and a reviewer. After that, we're of course going to get into the whole other aspect because it's a massively important discussion, and one I feel like I'm uniquely positioned to talk about because I'm one of the few non-sponsored content creators who simultaneously makes videos on gaming, crypto gaming, knows people in the space, both spaces I guess that is, and just has followed this for many years, making hundreds of videos, and obviously feel comfortable in my position and my opinions on crypto in gaming. I'm not a hater of it, I'm not a lover of it. I just think that realistically, historically, we've seen what's been on offer, and that has led people to believe a certain thing, and mostly that's true. All of the games that have tried this previously have failed for reasons that are nothing to do with this game. This game has none of the problems that pretty much every single other cryptocurrency game has had, and it's doing everything right, in my opinion, for trying to onboard people to what they claim is going to be the future. But let's start off with the actual game. What is Off the Grid? This is what they're calling an extraction battle royale third-person shooter, which might sound confusing because how can a battle royale designed to be the last people standing also be an extraction shooter, where your goal is, of course, to loot and escape with your life? But Off the Grid is very different. Sure, you're still dropping in, you're looting, you're fighting, you're trying to win, this time with robotic arms and legs that have a decent chunk of different abilities and use cases that all feel really fun and fluid. That is, of course, until you fall and your legs drop off or somebody shoots your arms off and you can no longer fire back, which is very cool, may I add. But with Off the Grid's extraction mechanic, it makes for a different, more varied gaming experience to what most other battle royales currently offer. Basically, you drop into a game, currently in trios. You do the usual battle royale things that aren't really worth going into detail about. You loot chests to find guns and equipment, fight other people, but you also have a chance to find hex cubes while you're doing these things. Hex cubes are loot boxes. Yes, really. Surprise, surprise. They come in 4 rarities: common, uncommon, rare, and epic. Finding a hex cube is exciting, but now you have an additional stake in the game, which makes it feel more so. Basically, to get the hex out of the game, you have to go to one of the few designated locations on the map, put it in the hex machine, and then defend it. If you succeed, you'll find that in your inventory after the game, you have it, whether you win, lose, or draw. If another team hacks the extractor, they'll have an opportunity to do the same thing that you just did, so long as somebody or you doesn't stop them. That's the extraction mechanic in an otherwise standard battle royale format. This game has every other mechanic you would come to expect from the genre: a circle that closes smaller and smaller, forcing you to adapt to your surroundings and make on-the-fly decisions, with the final circle moving location until finally closing completely, making the last moments utter chaos. So on the surface, it's simple and standard, but what makes this game different is that there are games within the game. All over the map there are objectives. They'll point you in an area, assign you missions such as kill this specific player for the bounty hunt, find these specific boxes, hack this specific machine, and so on. It makes for varied gameplay, but the biggest thing that sets Off the Grid apart is, funnily enough, the extraction mechanic. I played just about every other battle royale out there, and no matter what fluff there is to do in the middle, the goal remains the same each game. Land, loot, get the best stuff you can, try to win. If you lose, of course you can have fun, but the game sort of feels like a bit of a write-off if you don't. In Off the Grid, the extraction mechanic means that losing can feel just as, if not more rewarding than winning. with the win being the cherry on top of the cake that you'll still chase. What I mean is that having an awesome fight at an extractor, getting out of there with some cool loot crates that will reward you with anything from guns, attachments, customization for the guns, cosmetic skin appearances, things like that, is fun as fuck, to put it simply. Getting an epic weapon hex crate out of the game is amazing, and even if I don't get the win at the end, it feels like I've accomplished something equal or even better than the win in the end of the round. Not just that, but it feels like I'm making account progress on each drop instead of just a singular, repeated experience with no meaningful progression beside the improvement of my own skill at the game, which is a given in any gaming loop. The marriage between the Battle Royale loop that is invariably fun from round to round and the high-stakes risk of hunting or depositing hexes to progress your account makes for, I will just say, an incredibly fun experience that I found myself wanting to play over and over again, especially as I started to understand how the game worked, which is important to note because at first glance and first experience of the game, my impressions were not overall good. In terms of those first impressions, before I continue to glaze the game's positives, of which there are many, this game simultaneously feels like it was made by people who really know what they were doing and didn't know what they were doing at all. There are elements of it that are great and some that are mystifyingly stupid. First off, the game can just feel janky. That's a word we use a lot, which is kind of hard to describe specifically, but something about the whole game feels just off, and it's just a matter of getting used to it, like with many games that feel this way upon first play. The movement, the aiming, the gun feel specifically doesn't feel the greatest. I did grow to like it as I got used to everything after a dozen or so games, but I was enjoying it in spite of some of that early feeling. Specifically, some of the guns and the firing feel quite bad. One aspect that is probably the worst in the entire game, this is my biggest complaint, is that there's almost zero indication you're actually being shot by other players or taking damage at all, which is very important to know in a video game where people are constantly shooting at you from 8,000 different angles. This seems to be a fairly common complaint, and I'm not joking when I say that even after close to 20 hours of playing the game with a handful of wins despite playing duos in a game with all trio teams, I still cannot tell when I'm losing a fight. There doesn't appear to be any real feedback or feeling when I'm being hit by other people. There are legitimately times where I die full to nothing by someone shooting me, and I'll not even have noticed I was being shot in the first place. It's honestly bewildering how a game can do so many things intelligently and correct, and then manage to do such a fundamentally important and seemingly obvious thing so incorrect. This also goes for shooting enemies too, but to a much lesser degree. I can tell when I hit people, I can tell when I break their shield, but hitting people doesn't feel as satisfying as some other shooter games. If I compare shooting someone with a shotgun in, for instance, Apex Legends to Off the Grid, it's night and day difference in terms of that feedback and feel. That being said, this is a minor thing that could very easily be worked on. It's not foundational or, a pillar of the game that's going to be really hard to change. Other complaints are that the load screens take a long time, optimization isn't great, and that's with the best consumer hardware money can buy. I'm getting frame drops all the time, which is kind of understandable because the game looks great, it's visually impressive, and the map is absolutely huge. But this is, of course, an area of improvement. They do need to fix the optimization. I will say on the map front, this game's map is fantastic. It's what all Battle Royale games should strive for. The elevation, the layout of it and everything. It feels like you're in a city. It feels like every time you play the game, it's totally different because the map is just such a huge factor. There's massive cranes. You can go inside most of the buildings. I think the only improvement would be more entry to the buildings and more loot on more floors of the buildings. But in general, the map is absolutely great. It looks great. It feels great. It actually feels like you're in a city, like you're in a battle royale, rather than in a video game map, which sounds intangible, but honestly, that's the way it feels. It is also worth mentioning that just like in some other similar battle royale games, you can build loadouts of the stuff you've looted or that you bought on the marketplace from outside the match. So when you're in the lobby, you can build loadouts. This is the same as the Call of Duty loadout system, I believe. This could call into question whether there are advantages to people who buy the eventual cash shop currency, which is also a cryptocurrency, and get fully kitted out loadouts to then call into the game later on as they're playing. But in my experience so far, as someone who has been very lucky in getting lots of great top-of-the-range gear in the game, the loadouts get more expensive as you add better things to them, and by the time you usually have enough money to call one in, you pretty much got all the loot you need from the game itself, from actually playing the round. Just to clarify what I mean here by expensive, I mean when you're playing the game in the actual map, you pick up money, cash, and then obviously your loadouts cost a certain amount of cash depending on what stuff you've got in there, the quality of the stuff, how much of the stuff you have. So if you were to buy a bunch of stuff from the marketplace, which you can do from just playing the game, from earning tokens, it's going to cost a whole bunch more money to call in than if you only had, say, one gun in it or something like that, or a bunch of lower quality things. It feels like this is something I'll need to see more of as I play, and especially as a meta forms where we have the strongest guns and the strongest legs and arms and things like that and equipment, to know specifically how much this is going to be an issue with people calling in fully completed loadouts or weapons that are very difficult to find and do make a massive advantage. If there is a meta that forms where something is incredibly imbalanced and people are putting that into an early loadout on its own and calling it in early into the game to get a huge advantage, that's probably going to cause an issue for some people who don't want to go into every game with an inherent disadvantage, especially when battle royales are mostly sort of like level 0 in terms of player disadvantages or advantages. When you land on the ground, usually the implication is everyone's going to be on the same playing field and the same footing. This is something I can recognize because you can just see it, you can see the possibility of it, but it's not something I can say I've experienced right now because it doesn't seem to be an issue just yet. I can only speculate about what it's going to be like going forward, and we'll just have to keep an eye on it. That being said, the game is good, and I really like it, which is a shock, specifically because what we're about to talk about. I will, of course, say the game is by no means perfect. This is not a 10 out of 10 IGN or something. Of course, that's a rating scale everyone loves using. It's not the second coming of Christ, but it's free. It's enjoyable as a free game, and it's a breath of fresh air in a genre that I feel like has been stagnant for a real long time. The fact is, it's easy to play, it's fast-paced, the movement feels great, the flying feels amazing, the grappling hook feels great, the arms and legs and things like that feel refreshing. In general, it's just a great game, and I've had a lot of fun with it, which again is a huge surprise. One of the best things about the game is that it's incredibly lenient with early deaths, allowing you to freely respawn very quickly, so long as you have one teammate alive for the first few minutes of the game, and can be respawned later in the game at any time, so long as they have the money to spawn you in, which means map play and things like that are just built into the factor of playing the game and trying to not let people spawn their teammates, or trying to outplay people to get to an area, lock areas down to spawn your teammates. It's just well made. It's just a great gameplay loop. I'm definitely going to continue to play after this video, which is not something I can say all the time. And the developers can certainly pat themselves on the back for creating something that isn't just a copy of its predecessors, but an iterative design that took what the others have done, added in a bunch of aesthetic and gameplay flair, and made something that is entirely their own, recognizably so. This is doubly impressive and even more praise when you then get back to the elephant we left in the corner, who thankfully has waited patiently for his turn. Cryptocurrency, NFTs, blockchain. Again, you could play this game for hundreds, probably thousands of hours and never even come across the fact that this game had those things. Legitimately, I tell you if not otherwise. You're rewarded a trickle of some currency in the game, just like every other freemium game in the world. You then use that stuff to buy things in the marketplace. But unlike buying things with influence points in League of Legends, the free-to-play currency you get from that, or whatever other example you can give, you're buying things from a marketplace, and those things just so happen to be sold by other players. And they are NFTs. You never actually see a crypto, an NFT, a blockchain transaction, but they're there under the hood. Opening the game and playing, you're on the blockchain. The hexes you open for guns, skins, or whatever else, they're NFTs, and they're tied to your wallet. Selling them simply transfers that NFT to whoever bought it, just like the Steam marketplace. And that's a comparison you're going to see a lot, because it's an easy way to conceptualize this while making it seem less scary and troublesome. But I am getting ahead of myself. I need to tell you up front what my thoughts and feelings, experiences and expectations are when it comes to this kind of stuff. Because maybe you haven't seen one of my hundreds of videos shitting on crypto gaming in the past few years. Cryptocurrency, NFTs, blockchain are all usually disqualifying factors in a video game's chance for success. This is just a fact. But why is it a fact? Because the more involved you make those things, the less of a game exists. Most crypto games exist as a speculative investment first, sold by grifters, bought by morons and boomers. No actual gamer cares, wants to play these games, or will even acknowledge that they exist, except to laugh at the sheer idiocy or delusion that this is something that they'd want. Most crypto games are just that. They are crypto games, crypto first games much later, if ever or at all. They sell things before they're made. They sell things that make the game inherently and unenjoyably pay to win. They treat the idea of the gamer coming later as if they are a medieval peasant. The lords and ladies bought in 4 years ago when the only game was being run on them by a grifter who told them that they can definitely build the future of video games together. We just need your money, despite never having made anything previously. Almost nobody in that crowd, which is 99.9% of crypto gaming, by the way, and crypto everything, understands that gamers don't want any of the nonsense. They want to play games and they don't care about anything else. This is why crypto and NFTs have become poison to the average gamer, because everything that came before was disgustingly and painfully obvious. And due to that, gamers have ignored some real benefits that blockchain could, feasibly give to them. I said this for years, but now we have a proof of concept beyond the original and perfect proof we already have, which is the Steam marketplace, Dota 2, TF2, Rust, CSGO, all the games that use that marketplace. These games treat skins as digital collectibles that you own, sort of, that you can trade with others. You can sell them. They don't become dead assets once you move on to a new game. This concept exists, but it's limited to the Valve ecosystem, meaning if Daddy Valve bans you or trade restricts you or decides tomorrow they don't want the skin trading platform to operate the way it does anymore, you just shit out of luck. It's centralized on Valve servers, with items existing solely on either the market, which is controlled by Valve and their servers, or someone's Steam account, which you're renting from Steam, and that exists on their platform as well. There are pros to this system, of course, which you do lose with blockchain, and that is that it's managed by a trusted, long-standing, and legally easy-to-find entity that adheres to strict laws and regulations of the lands they operate in, as well as the ability to reverse, freeze, or otherwise stop malicious transactions before bad things can happen. Despite this, Valve do not restore skins when your account is hacked, so that does seem somewhat irrelevant. Unless they've changed this, I've not seen it if they have. So with blockchain as an alternative, you get all the pros of owning your own skins and items, but none of the oversight, protection, or restrictions of Valve's Steam marketplace. Instead, you choose to do with the stuff what you want. I don't see this as negative. I see this as something that is actually good for gamers because you get to choose what you do with your stuff when you do it. One big pro, though, of Steam and using Steam and Valve's system is that, of course, you have games on that system that are all built into the same ecosystem that have been going for years and have some of the most popular, long-standing IPs in the gaming world. So any game that goes on there, you know that the Steam currency, that game might be around for a real long time, and therefore you're more likely to care about your digital collectibles and items in the first place. With crypto, one of the things you're going to see is that there's a million different blockchains, there's a million different companies, and to bridge your things between the different cryptos, if you're going to move on to a different game, it's not just like logging on the Steam marketplace and it's all universal. You would need to have some cursory knowledge and understanding of blockchain, which is basically the biggest issue with onboarding people to blockchain in the first place, is that it's clunky and it's not really self-explanatory for new users, which most gamers are not going to care about, look into, or really bother with. So having this, wide as an ocean, deep as an ocean system is good in the way that there is more freedom with it. But at the same time, until it's much easier to use, most gamers, even if they did adopt this, are still going to be at square one with understanding and using it if they were to move their stuff off of one game to try to go to another one that was using a different blockchain or having to interact with crypto and NFTs more than this game actually makes you do, which is, again, basically zero. Because I will remind you, you could log on and play this game and not even know crypto or NFTs are even involved or blockchain in any way. And of course, you don't need crypto or blockchain or any of these things to do what I'm talking about. This is what people are going to say. And to that, I say, yeah, you're right. I've said the same thing many times. But I'll also say that owning your own stuff and being able to do with it what you want is a pro as a consumer. It's just dependent on where you stand on this. In a time where Steam has just admitted to what we already knew, we don't own our games on their platform. We simply rent a license. Where we own nothing digitally in this world, yet spend more money on digital goods year after year, trending upwards over time. Owning things again is good for us, at least in my opinion. So for that, to try to get there as a test to see if it can work, if we have to use blockchain because that's what's raising money for companies who are then inadvertently, or maybe they're trying to give you a pro-consumer path to digital ownership, that's something I can try and accept, even while knowing we could do the same with a database, but the money's just not there for somebody to give us a database. What Off the Grid then does is proves that this can work so long as the game comes first and it's enjoyable enough to make people look past something that is entirely secondary. The game is and always should be front and center. You never have to know or touch the other stuff, and that's how it always needed to be. A game where gamers can play and people that want to speculate or trade can do that as well. But now this is where we get into the really interesting discourse that's going on online. Because despite this seemingly being a big W for the Web3 crowd, which is the crypto people, it's actually not all sunshine and rainbows or even clear cut. A lot of crypto people have been selling this lie that cryptocurrency games were going to take over and be the biggest things in the world. I still think that's utter bullshit. And despite Off the Grid doing well, it sort of proves that their idea of crypto games taking over is bullshit as a premise. Off the Grid hasn't succeeded because of crypto. In fact, if you removed it entirely, the game would probably be getting as much, if not more, praise and buzz. It's succeeding in spite of that, not because of it. If the only crypto game that gets any hype at all has to hide it away under the stairs like Harry Potter at the Dursleys, that doesn't really sell the idea that crypto gaming is the future, does it? Not just that, but some crypto influencers rightly point out that compared to what the crypto industry has been vomiting into each other's laps for the past 5 years, this isn't even really a crypto game. There's nothing for Moonbros to buy or speculate on. There's no massive legacy pay to win or coin to hoard for over half a decade while a game didn't even exist. It's just a game with skins on the blockchain, which is exactly what I said would be able to succeed because we already literally have it. It's called the Steam Marketplace. CSGO knives and guns have been selling for thousands of dollars for years and years. And this is not going away. We have it. We know gamers will accept it because it's in front of your eyes. But this being the case is also completely antithetical to the grift that a lot of these crypto influencers and companies have been peddling for years. This game is the proof of that. There are, of course, true believers in crypto that I've had the pleasure of having long conversations with. Some brilliantly talented minds who believe that the future involves decentralization, tokenization, and ownership in the hands of the people. And honestly, their vision sounds great. I can see the merit. But for every one of those people that exists, there are millions of greedy little men wringing their hands, salivating over every industry that wants nothing to do with them and trying to extract every drop of profit that they can possible from those industries, not caring that they're destroying the vision of those who would otherwise try to use the tech for the benefit of others. I think in a world where digital ownership basically doesn't exist and we rent licenses, being able to, for instance, have a Steam where you buy licenses for games and you own that license is something that exists forever, independent of Steam. So you go back to owning things and you can trade that license to somebody else like a physical product like we used to do with video games. It's something that wouldn't benefit the corporations directly, but would benefit us as customers. And if we need to accept a blockchain for something like that, I don't see how that's the worst thing in the world. Sure, you're getting something negative, but you are probably getting something positive as well, if that could be a future, which unfortunately doesn't seem to be on the horizon right now. Especially considering, as I've just mentioned, millions of people have got into crypto to extract value from people, to scam people, to grift, to lie, and that's all they care about. And they basically ruined the reputation of something that could eventually, potentially have been beneficial to people, to the point where it's going to take a long time and many games like Off the Grid to show people that, yeah, this can be beneficial, it can be fine. Or at least give it a chance to try and prove some point one way or another. That's a side tangent, but also straight fire and completely true. That being said, is Off the Grid somehow now going to better humanity in some way? No. Is it better for having blockchain technology? No, not really, not as it stands. Maybe in the future when the skins, do something else or whatever. It's just right now a good game that has other stuff that you don't even notice it's there if you don't want to. And does prove that a good game will onboard people to a system if they don't know the system is there. And maybe they'll like the game enough to have an open mind going forward to other games that are also games and not just crypto scammed wearing a hat and a fake mustache like a shit disguise that we can all see through. Off the Grid isn't proof that cryptocurrency is the future of gaming. Off the Grid is proof that people will play good games in spite of things they don't like or understand. And ownership of digital goods can exist and be adopted if you greedy crypto morons start making good games first and money second. I know it's very difficult. It's a difficult concept. That being said, the game's good. It's free. It's way better with friends as expected of any squad-based game. And simultaneously, there isn't enough evidence to stop avoiding the words crypto, NFT, or blockchain when they're attached to a game you see online. This game doesn't prove that they're all going to be good. This is currently the exception, not the rule. But the same reason I tried this game will be the same reason I'll continue to try them all, because I'm open-minded to the idea that owning things again might be cool, even if there's a cost attached. Thanks for watching. Check the links in the video description, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.